president, his staff and the cabinet and the leadership of Congress to in the event of an all-out attack on the United States. We understand that they will not activate Weather Mountain. That's a direction that it appears that they're not headed in at this point. The president could go to any military base across the country. There are also a number of other facilities in which there are secure communications that the president could operate from. One of those being Camp David. Now, there had been earlier reports of some sort of a crash or an explosion near Camp David. Sources close to protection for the president told me this morning, Dan, just a little while ago, that they have not had any reports of that, though, as you can imagine, because of the extent of the carnage and the attacks against America this morning. It's difficult to know exactly what is going on at any particular point in time. Certainly, we will be hearing from the president later on when communications are reestablished. But for the moment now, Dan, what they're trying to do is make sure that the administration is in place to respond to this crisis, to ensure that the reins of government do not get broken, to ensure that they have communication with the leadership in Congress as well as the military. Those plans are in place right now. The president en route to a location where he can be assured of secure communications in contact with all of the officers that he needs to be in touch with. And again, Dan, we should be hearing from our people just as soon as they take the wraps off of this exactly where they are and what the immediate plan is. Dan?
John Robertson, Washington, of course, is concerned about how the government operates in Washington, but make no mistake, the center of this story today, these terrorist attacks, is at the tip of Manhattan, where the World Trade Centers, both of the Twin Towers, 110 stories up, both have collapsed. No one is making light of what's happened in Washington. Something happened at the Pentagon, and reportedly, and we believe true, an effort to attack Camp David in Maryland. I'm pausing for just a second as we get some new information in. However, that's not been totally confirmed, so I'll put it aside.
Good morning. I'm Carolyn Donaldson. Now breaking our CBS coverage of this catastrophic event to bring you some local updates on some news that is breaking in our region. We do have now confirmed that a large plane, in fact, it's a United Flight 93 from Newark, New Jersey to San Francisco. It was a Boeing 767. It has crashed in what is considered the Lambertsville, Shanksville, and even near Stoystown. There you see a map of Somerset County where this Boeing 767 went down about 10 o'clock this morning. We do know it was a United Flight 93. There is no sign of any survivors from that plane crash in Somerset County. Now, we also have, of course, crews on their way. They will be there momentarily. We will be getting much more information on that. We also want to bring you up to date on what the Cambria County Department of Emergency Services is passing on to us right now. Public facilities are encouraged to monitor television news reports of any aircraft-related terrorist incidents of this large aircraft, again, in the Shanksville area of Somerset County. It is still not known if this crash is related to any of the other incidents that have been reported all morning long. It is recommended that all county buildings and schools order an orderly dismissal of employees and students. And to that end, we have been scrolling to you the reports that we have of the school districts that have called into our region. I want to run those down for you now. For those parents who are concerned, here you see Glendale High School dismissing momentarily, in fact, at this time, right now, dismissing elementary to follow at 12:15. Forest Hills Middle and High School will be dismissing at 12:30, the elementary schools to follow. We also have Central Cambria School District dismissing 12 o'clock. The high school and middle school will be dismissing 1 o'clock, the elementary school, and also Penn Cambria School District will have a 1-hour early dismissal. Latchkey will be available there. Mount Aloysius College is closing at 12 noon today. Mount Aloysius College closing at 12 noon today. So we'd like to pass that along. We also have a report of a SWAT team that is on site at the Johnstown Airport. They are planning to have a 12:45 news conference. We have a crew there. We'll have the very latest information for you there as well. But once again, repeating, we do have the confirmed report of a United Flight 93 Boeing 767 gone down in Stoystown area of Somerset County. No sign of any survivors. I'm getting some more information here, and we also want to pass along, I'm sorry, I don't understand this. Okay, we do have a report now that there were 421 passengers on board that United Flight 93. Again, that plane is down, no sign of any survivors in the Somerset County area. We do have Patrick Shore momentarily joining us by phone, but right now I just want to keep going over that right now. Please stay tuned to this report. We can bring you the very latest information. We're receiving it from many different points of entry. The courthouse in Ebensburg is closing. The unemployment office in Altoona is closing. The vocational services, including the blind services, will be closing in Altoona. And again, Cambria County EMA departments are contacting schools in Cambria County, recommending that they do close and send their students home early. And we want to let you know that because, again, that directly influences you. I believe that is all the information we have at this time. We will be rejoining CBS Now, and we will be monitoring this situation and come to you with any new information. Continue to stay with 10 News for the very latest.
A police officer, and I wish I knew the firefighter's name, a police officer by the name of Brendan Duke grabbed my hand, and he and I tried to find our way.
Are all giving the marching orders. It's going to be some time before we know how many people were on the planes, where the flight crews were from. We know where they were flying to and from.
Good afternoon. I'm Carolyn Donaldson, rejoining you now with some local information regarding this catastrophic attack. We now believe, again, CBS is already reporting that the plane crash that has gone down in Somerset County is believed to be related to the other attacks on America. Let's get the very latest information about that plane crash. We know it's a United Flight 93 traveling from Newark, New Jersey to San Francisco, went down in a very rural section of Somerset County about 10 a.m. this morning. And we are joined now on the phone by Patrick Shore, who has, right from the crash site, the latest information. Patrick, can you hear me?
Yeah, Carolyn, as I stand out here, it is simply hard to believe. It's unfathomable. It's mind-boggling. There is a crater in the ground out here, and as I reported earlier, it is not a very large crater. I thought that it was a smaller plane at first. Now we're hearing it was a 757 United flight. 421 passengers on board from what we understand. And to see the destruction out here, the burnt trees, it just does not look like a plane that big could have caused this. But if it came down like the witnesses are describing to me, sort of a nosedive into the ground, creating this smoldering crater, it almost leaves you speechless. It's really hard to describe, Carolyn. We have a lot of emergency crews out here. We have the FBI on scene. A large group of state troopers are now exploring an area in the woods where there's a clearing. We believe that some of the debris went out there. I have several witnesses telling me that they have seen debris scattered all across this field out here. It appears to be a reclaimed mine site where we are. There's a clearing here. Just a lot of debris where we've seen envelopes flying around down there from what the witnesses tell me. We haven't seen any sort of luggage or anything like that. But as you look at the trees where it looks like some of the debris shot off into the trees, burnt the trees, there is debris in the trees. You can see some debris hanging from the trees here. State police helicopters on the ground. It was flying over earlier. Tons of witnesses that live in the area out here. We're out near Lambertsville, Somerset County. It's right north of, south of Indian Lake.
Patrick, let me ask you about those eyewitnesses. Were they able to see what was happening when the plane went down? Did it look like there was some trouble with the plane? Have you any feel for that, or was it a deliberate attack?
We spoke with one gentleman who was working right nearby at a scrap metal plate right at the top of the hill here. Now we're being told to move by state troopers right now. I have a trooper telling me to move a little bit further away from the line that they've marked off here. This witness was working here. It was second day on the job. He saw the plane come across the top of the hill. He said it did not look like it was in distress. It wasn't flipping. It wasn't turning. He said it just flew straight across the field and then took a nosedive into the ground, creating this crater that I described earlier. So no, it didn't look like it was in trouble, according to the witnesses that we've spoken with. But everyone here is just in shock. They can't believe that something this huge has hit so close to home.
Patrick, any sign of survivors? Is there any hope of going in there and finding anything alive at this point?
I would have to say no, Carolyn. Unfortunately, I'm sorry, I'm being moved right now by a state trooper. He's telling us to clear the area.
Okay.
So I'm kind of walking as I talk to you right now as we go back to our vehicle. But the damage, one would have to assume that there is no chance that anybody could be found alive if you would just look at this crater down there.
Okay. Patrick, we know you have to move to safety. Please do so and stay in touch, and we'll be back in touch with you in just a little bit.
Okay, Carolyn.
Thank you. Now, let me bring you folks up to date with some other information because of that. Again, the attack on America apparently has hit central Pennsylvania with this plane crash. And because of that, we have a number of school closings that we really want to make sure you understand, because again, you folks are watching, listening, and needing to know that type of information. The Cambria County Department of Emergency Services has contacted pretty much all the school districts in the Cambria County region. And as we continue here, we show you those school closings. Let me just quickly run by them in case you can't see. It's Central Cambria releasing right now. Mount Aloysius School is closing right now. Penn Cambria School District will have a 1-hour early dismissal. Latchkey is available there, so we want to pass that on. We also have other schools. Let's get to the other screen if we can, please, and show you that we believe that emergency crews are on alert throughout all of Cambria County. And okay, we just heard word that St. Francis University is closing at 1 o'clock. St. Francis University closing at 1 o'clock. Let me just run down the other ones that I do know about. We have a SWAT team at the Johnstown Airport. We hope to bring you more information. There's a news conference scheduled there. Heightened alert, of course, security there. Route 219 is closed near the Galleria Mall. Galleria Mall is closed. So those are the very important, crucial things that we want to pass along. Cambria County Courthouse, Huntingdon County Courthouse closing at this hour. Let's change our focus just a little bit and go live to John Clay now. And he has reaction now of what is believed to be our attack on America. John Clay, can you hear me yet?
Yes, Caroline, I'm here.
Okay.
First, I wanted to express just a few things, how this apparent terroristic attack is affecting folks in our region. A lot of different things, as we had a shot of a screen up there a few minutes ago. Some of the different things, one is that most government offices in our region and throughout the state, throughout the country, have gone on to a high-level alert, a level 1 alert. This is the highest level that's possible. I spoke with some folks over at the Willowbank building in Center County. That's what they're doing. They've also, here in Center County, enacted the Emergency Operations Center. Basically, what this is doing is it's getting all of the emergency crews throughout the state, and specifically in our region, for our viewers, on alert. This may mean they have to be ready at home with the phone, or they may have to go in, whether it's fire crews, emergency crews of any sort, ambulance, police, that kind of thing. Everyone is basically standing by and ready to act if need be. Also, military detachments in our area are on a high rate of alert. They've gone to basically securing their buildings and waiting. At this point, what they're doing is waiting to hear from the president. We heard a little bit from the president earlier this morning, but no basically declaration of what is going to be done with it, whether it be National Guard troops or our military folks in uniform. Now, one other thing, certainly as you can imagine, hundreds of people around in our area glued to the TV sets, including today. We went down to the campus, Penn State campus, got folks down at the Union building watching television, getting reaction from them. Here's how that unfolded.
I'm in shock, so I'm sorry. I just found out about 10 minutes ago.
Every car that arrives at the gate where I was located was being stopped by officers at gunpoint.
Well, it's kind of like the stuff that you see in movies, like you don't expect it.
I mean, I was shocked because I was in New York City a few weeks ago, you know, on top of the buildings.
I actually work right next door.
Oh, really?
I work in the complex. So I just called home 10 minutes ago, let my family know I'm okay.
It's not right to take anybody's life. You don't have any right to take somebody else's life.
When I first found out, it was about 5 minutes ago when I was watching the TV here, and I mean, it's kind of like your heart sank knowing that, you know, what happened to the people in the building.
It's extremely scary, especially since my dad works near the Pentagon, and this is insane.
I've never been around like terrorism before. It's kind of shocking.
It's indicative of the world in which we live, and thank God that I wasn't there.
Now, Center County Commissioners are meeting at about 12:30 this afternoon to go over more on what they need to do at the Emergency Operations Center here in Center County. Also want to tell you the Red Cross is setting up a lot of blood drives in our area. Specifically, we know of one that's going on right now at the Union building on campus. They're concerned about trying to make sure there's enough blood available for the victims in this disaster. Also, church groups organizing a lot of prayer groups. Call your local church if you're interested in attending. There's a lot of different ones going on throughout our region. One specific one we wanted to note was tonight at 7 o'clock on the steps of Old Main. We'll continue to follow the progress of how this is affecting everyone in our region, and we'll be back later tonight at 10 News. Live in State College, I'm John Clay. Carolyn, back to you.
Thanks for bringing us up to date on that. And yes, those prayer services we'll run down in just a few minutes. Let's go now live by phone to Jerry Gish, who is at the Altoona Post Office with some local reaction in Blair County. Jerry, what can you tell us?
Well, Carolyn, actually, we have a situation here in downtown Altoona right now. The post office in downtown Altoona on 11th Avenue has been evacuated. It was evacuated about 11:15 this morning. The reason for that is a suspicious package that someone tried to mail this morning. I am told by workers here at the post office that the person who wanted to mail this package was acting suspiciously. Someone who had just rented out a box here very recently. They were concerned about this, so they have moved the package into the parking lot now, and they're waiting for a bomb squad to show up and check this out. So, in the meantime, the post office has been evacuated here. Also, parking garage that is beside the post office also evacuated, and that same building also houses the Water Authority and the Amtrak station and the Greyhound station. They are all closed down, evacuated at this hour. The Amtrak, Greyhound, and Water Authority parking garage down here on 11th Avenue are evacuated while they wait for a bomb squad to arrive to see what is possibly in this package. I should also mention, if you are familiar here with the post office, right across 12th Street is Ida Towers, which is a large apartment complex here. That has not been evacuated.
And that houses a lot of senior citizens.
Yes,
so
it does.
they are okay right now. They're inside the building.
They are fine, and authorities are here blocking off the scene. And so the towers, as of right now, even though right across the street, are fine as we speak.
Jerry,
now
real quickly, the post office did not receive any national notice to close. Then this is definitely a local, isolated event at this point, Jerry.
Absolutely, this is a completely local, completely related to a package that they received today, and they are concerned about, and that is why they've closed it down. I want to also mention very briefly that an emergency operations center has also been opened up in Blair County out of the 911 center. If anything needs to happen, they say they are ready to go. So as many counties across, not only Pennsylvania, across the country are reacting, they are here in Blair County in the Altoona area as well.
Okay, Jerry Gish by phone in Altoona. Thank you very much. Stay by and let us know when there's any other update on that possible bomb scare right now at the Altoona post office. Again, an unrelated incident at this point. Now, let me bring you up to speed on some other things. We are going to continue to scroll those school closings and other businesses that have been affected. Johnstown City Council Mayor Zucco has faxed and issued a release recognizing and saying that because of this heightened alert, he is recommending to businesses in the Johnstown area to close down. And we also have North American Communications. Now, that's a fairly large employer in our area. It is closed until tomorrow morning. They do have employees from all throughout our viewing public and wanted folks to know that. North American Communications closing down. We would like to run through the graphics of the prayer services. What can you do at this point? If you're not personally affected, which I think in all of our cases, we're living this, we're living it all together. But here is one thing that could be done if you're interested. Some prayer services that are underway, already scheduled to Friday night at 7 o'clock at the First Evangelical Lutheran Church. That is in Altoona. That will be happening, a prayer service for all of the, we believe to be tremendous loss of life in New York. We're not sure of the loss of life yet in the Washington area or near that Camp David plane crash. We do know that no sign of any survivors that we can find, though, at that plane crash that went down in Somerset County. Once again, to bring you up to speed on that, that was a United Flight 93. It's believed now to be related to the other terroristic attacks that occurred in New York City, in Washington, D.C., near Camp David, and now right in central Pennsylvania, just north of the Somerset County Airport. Other things I can tell you at this time is to, of course, caution, please leave your cell phones if you do not need to use them, and leave any other phones open for the emergency lines to use. At this point, throughout our area, there's many different heightened alerts going on, and we need to let the emergency folks be the first ones to have access to those phone and those cell lines. So we're getting faxes from various people who are letting us know, please let the public know, watch the televised reports. We'll continue to scroll all those closings, especially in Cambria and Somerset County, those schools most directly affected. Check and see if your child will be heading home early today. We, of course, will keep you right here at the desk. We return now to CBS programming for the very latest nationally on this attack on America.
Vehicles were covered with this debris. Devastating. I've never covered anything like this in my life. That building literally became a bomb itself.
Never covered anything like it in your life because nobody's ever seen anything like this in their life. This scene as one of the World Trade Centers came crashing down. It looked like a scene from the end of the world. It was the end of the World Trade Center. This is videotape from around 10 o'clock Eastern Time this morning.
Because of the concern here that they too could become a terrorist attack. The FBI and federal law enforcement are still operating under the assumption that this was a terrorist attack. They have no firm evidence who was involved. The obvious suspect is Osama bin Laden. But I have to tell you too, Dan, that there's been speculation about what happened on these aircraft. And the speculation that they have, underlying against speculation, is that no commercial airline pilot, even if he had a weapon pointed at him, would deliberately do what these aircraft did. Therefore, the assumption is that the pilots, the people in control of the aircraft, were the actual people who hijacked these planes. As we reported earlier, Dan, there apparently was communication between the aircraft that were hijacked and the Federal Aviation Administration. It appears that maybe there was just enough time to alert the military that some of these planes had been hijacked. There was not enough time, I know this for a fact, to notify the FBI and its hostage rescue team, which would ordinarily be deployed immediately. So it happened very quickly. The plane, for example, that struck the World Trade Center, we know left Boston. It immediately was diverted. It was outside of its normal path, if you will, from what it should have been, and there was communication back and forth between the aircraft and the FAA. What was said, we do not know. We don't know whether that communication was an announcement that we have taken this aircraft hostage, or we don't know whether it was a plea for help from the pilots themselves. We do know that there was some sort of communication. But the assumption is that if the hijackers took the plane, they had flight training. What does that suggest? It means possibly that they had learned how to fly in the military, that they knew how to fly a jet aircraft, at least well enough to do what they did. Does that suggest that this was the work of a nation, something other than a terrorist organization? No one here knows yet. It will be a long time before that evidence is clear. I will tell you, Dan, no one to our knowledge has thus far claimed credit for this attack, and the FBI is pretty much got this thing under wraps. They're simply not saying anything right now. In fact, if you call the FBI, you can't reach them. They have all gone to their strategic command center inside the building, and this city is locked tight while it decides how to put the government back into place. Dan?
As you see this picture live in New York, in the middle right-hand corner of your screen, the Statue of Liberty. Lady Liberty overlooking the worst attack on the mainland United States in the history of the country. In the shadow of the Statue of Liberty, a direct attack on the freedom of every American and the freedom of every freedom-loving person anywhere. That is not too strong a statement. At least three hijacked planes crashed into U.S. landmarks today, destroying both of New York's Twin Towers, the World Trade Centers, 110 stories up they were each, just beyond the Empire State Building, which is dominating your screen at the moment with the smoke from the collapsed Twin Towers, both towers down now. The Pentagon was plunged into flames in an unprecedented.
We rejoin you now, our 10 News viewers, to bring you up to date on some local information and regional information regarding this attack on America. We'll rejoin Dan Rather and CBS, of course, in just a few minutes. We want to bring you up to date on what believe again now is tied to being part of the attack on America, and that is right in our region, the crash of a United Flight 93 plane traveling from Newark to San Francisco. Went down about 10 o'clock in a rural section just north of the Somerset County Airport. All passengers believed to have died on that impact of that crash. We do have confirmed reports from Westmoreland 911 dispatch, who earlier in the morning had received a cell phone call from a person who was in the bathroom of a plane, the back of a plane, we believe it to be this plane, who called out, "This is not a hoax, we are being hijacked, oh my gosh," and then there was an explosion and dead air. So we do have that confirmed, that there was a call from a cell phone from a customer, from a person on board, we believe to be that plane, calling the Westmoreland County 911 dispatch center and talking about it being a hijacked effort. We're joined now by Jack Allen. Jack Allen is a retired U.S. air pilot who's visiting the Altoona area. Jack, thank you so much for joining us. We're not going to be able to see you, but we'd like to talk to you about shedding some light a little bit on, you flew these kind of planes. Tell us a little bit first about perhaps how this could have happened and the makeup of the plane and the number of passengers that could have possibly been on board this United Air flight.
Well, the reason that I did give a call was I heard the reports of 421 passengers.
Yes.
And on our aircraft, normally 210 passengers is the maximum. So I wanted to let people know that that was probably not a good number.
Okay. We're getting reports from so many different areas, so that is a conflicting report.
Right.
It was a Boeing 757 now, a Boeing 757, Jack. Did you fly those?
Yes. Most of the pilots, if they're have a certification on a 757, they're certified on a 76 as well. And typically our max passenger load on a 757 is 182 passengers. And then an additional crew. So you get about 190 people on board, including crew and passengers.
Jack, some of the eyewitnesses from the scene talk about almost a cavernous type a look to that plane as it crashed. What kind of impact would it have had? What kind of fuel would it have been carrying? What would the crash have encompassed? Can you talk to our
Well, as far as crashing, that's not my area of expertise, but having flown out of Newark nonstop before, that plane, I'm sure it's good weather on the West Coast, and so that they wouldn't be carrying as much fuel as normally required, but probably planning to burn off about 23 or 24,000 pounds of gas, carrying a total of about 35, 36,000 pounds of gas. And since the takeoff was from Newark, you can see it's not that far to Pennsylvania.
Some of the people, again, the eyewitnesses who've described the actual descent of the plane say it did not show signs of distress. Any thoughts on what the pilot would be doing in, I am assuming, of course, you were trained in those kind of measures. What type of steps would the pilot have been going through at that point, Jack?
Well, it's that's total speculation, but I would say that having looked at these other incidents, I don't think that the normal pilot that was on board would be at the controls at that time. He wouldn't have let the plane get into that situation.
Okay. Jack Allen.
That's total speculation.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Again, the conflicting report, though, on the number of passengers we do not have confirmed, but you are saying it could be lower than what has been reported in the media at this point.
Yes, by a factor of 2.
Okay.
And having looked at those horrible photos on the television, I would say that there wouldn't be U.S. pilots that would forcibly or otherwise have flown that route. So I would, my speculation is that they would not have been the pilots to do this.
Okay. Jack.
They're incapacitated.
Jack Allen, retired U.S. air pilot, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Again, we have so many parts to this story, and of course the human component is probably first and foremost in our minds. And ironically, at the same time of the morning, we're joined now by Joe Murgo, who was out actually on a weather story at a high school. Tell us what happened.
I was visiting the Pencambria High School, normal weather talk, and our talk was going to start. It was about 9:15 or so, and then an announcement came on. First, a teacher came in and said what happened at the World Trade Center, and then an announcement came out that the tragedy did happen, not just at the World Trade Center, but also the Pentagon. The principal came over the intercom system, and all the students, I mean, this is the backbone of America, the schools across the area. All the students really paid close attention to what was going on, and the principal gave the teachers an option to watch the coverage. And this is one of many classrooms that I was visiting in the school, and I went across the school, and a lot of the classrooms, you could hear a pin drop. The students were just watching, jaws ajar. I mean, it was hard to believe that something like this happened, because a lot of these students were born in the these students were probably born in the 1980s and 90s, so they were not accustomed to this. And I talked to the principal, and I asked him what his plan of attack was, and I think he handled it very well, and we have something from him. Okay.
We received information that there was a terrorist attack, and so we followed the usual procedure, and that's to watch CNN or WTAJ or any of the network news to find out exactly what was happening. And then when we find that it's appropriate and something that's current events, then what we do is give the teachers option to continue the delivery of the regular curriculum or be involved with the current events so that our students are kept up to date. And then the teachers can also work with kids in case there's some emotional reaction so that we can monitor the students and their reaction appropriately.
And the teachers that I saw at Penn Cambria handled it very professionally. They first explained what was going on, caught the students up to date to when they turned the television on, and then Carolyn, they basically were available to talk to the students, but at certain points of time they were just all watching and they were focused, and there was one person on the staff at Penn Cambria who may have had a relative in one of the buildings, and they left the school. I didn't get to talk to them, but they handled that very well, and I think the students got to watch history in motion during the day for today.
Yeah, national news reports are actually saying this is possibly the largest, the biggest mainline attack in the history of the United States. To tell you again the scope of the project here, the Major League Baseball teams have canceled all their games tonight. We want to pass that along. Again, inconsequential in the big scheme of things, but again, plays relevance to today's attack on America. We're going now live up to Kevin Flanagan, who is live in the newsroom with the very latest on